afternoon and welcome to Artist Revue. It's the end of the month of June. I first have to apologize. As you know, I promised you at the end of last month's segment that we would have our new opening. And unfortunately, I was promised as of yesterday that it was going to be ready. And we're still stuck with the old one. So hopefully by next month, please bear with us. We're going to have a brand new, great-looking opening there dedicated only to the Artist Revue show, and a separate one for our sister show. We'll talk about that at another time. But anyway, we're in the throes of heat, unbelievable heat, extreme heat. This is August heat, and it's only in June, so we really got some suffering. But interesting enough, and when we get to see it, you'll see that today's artist will have a cool perspective on the heat, and particularly how he translates to painting. And we want to go ahead and welcome to the show Thomas Berger. Berger. Tell me what it is, Thomas.
I'm Thomas Berger.
Berger. And Thomas was explaining at the beginning of the show that although his name is spelled something like the way I mispronounced it, he's from another area, not too far away, and that's the obviously the vernacular and the pronunciation. Whereabouts do you hail from?
I live in a little town called Plaquemine, which is in West Baton Rouge, which is near the bridge in Port Allen.
Yeah, well, I want to clarify, us New Orleanians who don't know a lot of geography, I always thought Plaquemine, the town, was in Plaquemine, the parish, but we learned that's not true at all. In other words, really, Plaquemine, the town, is on the east. Well, that's the west bank of the river in Baton Rouge, near Port Allen, huh?
Correct.
Excellent. And but you mentioned you also have a place here as well, so you get to sample both the not rural, but the small town and the larger town, huh?
Yes. I have what you'd call a city home and then a country home.
Very
And
nice.
I moved here to New Orleans 5 years ago to take on an apprenticeship for art conservation. And then Katrina, afterwards, I decided to relocate to Plaquemine, which is still a front porch community, and I like that.
We haven't been that in many years. People wanted, but well, tell me about your restoration. Now, we don't want to focus too much today because we want to really see your actual art. But what type of stuff have you been doing since Katrina for restoration?
With Katrina, I've noticed that most families are wanting some of their camps to be painted, or landscapes, or even some of the historic architecture within the quarter. So I used to set up in Jackson Square, and then I moved on to start doing the Arts Market of New Orleans. And I think I consider it one of the best art markets in New Orleans.
Now, Arts Market, as folks know now, we have so many as part of our recovery. Almost every neighborhood has some type of art festival, including all the other things on a Saturday during the month. Which one is the Arts Market of New Orleans?
The Arts Market of New Orleans is located in Palmer Park. We exhibit there the last Saturday of each month.
Right.
And we started out with 50 vendors and talented artists, and now there's over 100.
Now, do you know, since you're from out of town, did you know what the Arts Market of New Orleans was formerly called and where it was formerly located?
I think it was called the Uptown Arts Market.
It was originally the Mid-City Market on the corner of Canal and Carrollton. What happened when Katrina, it was extremely popular. In fact, it was just a small lot, and the neighbors would get so upset because the parking was so bad, and that's a busy intersection because it got to be so well attended. It was really not our first. The first market we had is still existing. That's in Bywater, and that's the oldest market. But Mid-City got to grow to the largest. So following Katrina, they moved it out to City Park, where they had a lot more space. The problem is, because of City Park's rundown condition, it really didn't draw the crowds that it needed. So they moved it to Palmer Park, where it's perfectly suited. It's a great park, a lot of space, and it really is probably the largest of all the markets that we have today. Now, before we get into it, you also mentioned, in addition to being, and so let's see, so is it this weekend that you'll be there, or is it?
This weekend I won't be attending since I have work that's currently being exhibited at the
Well,
Great
that's what I say.
Artist Collective.
You have another actual exhibition going on. Let's talk about that.
I approached a gallery owner in the quarter at 815 Royal Street, and that was Sandra Mann, and she was interested in my screenscape paintings.
Okay. He's giving you a little teaser there, but go ahead. And so when did you start? Oh, has it started yet or not yet?
It has started, and I do have work there currently.
Okay. So presumably there are normal hours like during the weekdays and maybe Saturday as well that you could...
During the hot months, they don't want to open up until 10, but they are open sometimes until 8.
That's morning for galleries.
Yes.
Yeah. But do they still open in the evening or just till 5?
Until about 8.
8, okay.
Sandra's good about
Great.
staying late.
And how long, and what was the address on that again?
That was 815 Royal Street.
Royal. Oh, okay, great. And how long is it scheduled for the exhibition?
Until they're all sold.
Oh, well, and how many pieces do you have there?
Right now I have 5.
5. Well, that could go well. Okay. And one last thing before we'll come back to some of these things, folks, during the show. So for those who want to jot down or want to get the information, some of Thomas's work, as well as all the information about his restoration and his work, are available on the, of course, on his website, www. What is it again?
T as in Thomas, L as in Lion, B as in Boy, artrestoration.com. That's
all one word. TLB, not TLC, like everybody 10 to 11 can. TLB, artrestoration.com. All, no spaces, no hyphenation, nothing, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. So any time of day you want to bring that up, you can start looking. Now, we've been kind of teasing you, even though Thomas has kind of leaked out. Anything else you want to say about your art without getting into specifics yet? Because then I'm going to start that.
I'd say just
or about
go
your
ahead.
Interest in art itself and getting into the art world.
Well, my interest in art was from my grandfather. He was German-born and studied at the academy in Germany. And after the war, he didn't quite catch on to the English language, but he could still paint very well. And I would sit next to him in his studio and paint alongside with him.
Fantastic. Great. That's great training.
Yeah.
But I bet he pronounced it burger. I bet that good old German's not going to pronounce it with that Baton Rouge accent. Anyway. Okay, folks, we want to show you something. This is kind of a teaser, as we mentioned. I don't know. We got to look at this. Look at that. What is that? First of all, it's dirty. It's funky. It's a wooden frame with screen. We know this all around our city, don't we, huh? We know it as protection from those little monsters that come and bite us during the summer. But the important thing is, could you believe this is a work of art, especially with me in it right there. You see, that's a beautiful framed portrait right there. Yes, and that's what Thomas does. As you heard him call, he calls them screenscapes. He actually is reusing and maybe fabricating new ones, I'm not sure on that, screens of all different sizes and actually creating paintings, acrylic paintings, I believe, but we'll find out that detail as well, on these screens. So you might say, oh, that's a fad. I think by the end of the show, you'll be convinced that it's not a fad, that the quality of the work here is as detailed as a true portrait, whether it's done in acrylic or oil. So it's just amazing. And I'm going to give one real example to show you how difficult this is, because the very first piece of art I collected from an auction when I was 16, I got it from my mom, very sentimental. And it was an oval painting. It looked like a black and white pencil of a very famous old master's, I won't give a painting, but anyway, a lady at the bath. And the thing is, we didn't find out till we came home that the print was not on paper or on canvas. It was actually done on nylon, like nylon stockings. And to see how this was done, how this was actually, the amount of work and detail we only saw when we had to have it reframed. And it's just phenomenal. So I really began an appreciation of those who can work in beyond the normal media, and especially in this detail. And I think Thomas must encounter some of the same challenges in working on the screens of, even though it might be a little different material, of his canvases, as opposed to using a nylon or something that they did back in Paris in the old days. And let's take a look. All right, I think we've said enough. Thomas is going to show us one of his pieces, and we'll take a look. Again, we have a horizontal scape here. Let's see if we can get a close-up of it. And why don't we start describing? It's in a beautiful green. Well, I guess you painted this frame. This was a screen.
This was a screen.
Okay.
And some people think I just grab these transom screens and start painting.
Okay.
But I have to clean them with bleach, sometimes restretch the screens. But I use the original screen as much as possible. And I sort of call it my green art because I try to recycle what was once used.
Ultimate in greenery, huh? In recycling. Now, you say you actually bleach the screen, obviously, to get all the impediments and everything else off it.
Yeah,
but other than that, do you paint the screen like a white or any background color before you start?
The screen stays just as it is.
Natural.
And I use acrylics and sometimes oils, just depends on my mood.
Okay.
What I try to do is try to capture the feeling of you looking through a screen onto a landscape.
Cool.
So this particular, and most of these, are from the transom windows that were above the doorways.
Yes, that's I was going to say. This looks like a transom window,
Right.
the size.
So sometimes I get some that are arched or oval. The ones that are oval are the oldest ones because they date back to 1830.
Right. Now here, again, you painted the frame, though, right? Obviously, a lovely kind of more screen to go. And the subject matter, let's talk about the trees.
Subject matter is the Tree of Life, which is the oldest tree in Audubon Park. Some think it might be over 400 years old. And I recently talked with an elderly man in Plaquemine that told me how you can measure or how old the tree is by measuring 4 feet up and then around the tree, and you'll take that measurement in inches and divide it by 1.2, and that's how you come up with the age of the tree.
Well, thank goodness they found one other than ever cut the tree down and count the rings. In my day, I said that's a terrible way to determine the age. So you're saying they actually go 4 feet off the ground.
Off the ground.
Use some kind of measurement, and then multiply that by a formula of
1.2.
And that tells how many years.
How old the tree
now,
is.
the tree, where about in City Park is this particular, in relation to maybe the museum or something, someone who wants to actually go see it? I know a lot of people are very familiar with it, but just to be sure.
Yeah. The Tree of Life is in Audubon Park.
Audubon, I'm sorry.
And it's just past the horse stables. So sometimes people barely catch it or go by it.
But now the stable's still where they used to be post-Katrina? Because, you know, they've moved the golf course and stuff. So is it still in the same area?
It's still in the same area.
Good, okay. Well, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm hoping you can get the, again, because some of the paintings come off somewhat dark because of the screen, and of course, I think hopefully you're getting the full value of the color because it's really beautifully done. All right, so that, did we say the size in that about?
It's about 18 inches by 24 inches.
Okay, we're going to a larger piece now, and here's one where looks like I don't know if you use maybe the natural painting of it, because it looks like typical white painted trim on a local home.
It's an off-white that I use.
Okay.
Because I noticed that most of these screens were created in the 30s, and those typical colors were off-white or sometimes even a green, a dark green.
Right, dark green.
In the French Quarter, there's a color, if you go to a paint store, and if you say French Quarter green,
that's it.
they know
Everybody
what you're
knows
talking about.
It's a green and a black, basically.
Correct.
Kind of. Okay, let's talk about this. So was this a transom too? No,
this was a transom too.
A little larger than the other. So what size do you think this is?
This is probably 24 by 18 or 22.
Okay. And what's our subject? Again, a beautiful, not forest, but park. Which park is this?
I think this might be City Park again, one of the lagoons. One thing I want to bring to everyone's attention, when I was staying in a hotel after Katrina, I was fortunate to be in the same hotel as the owner of Helenet, which was Alan Purwin. And he took me and another friend to see our homes and New Orleans after the flooding.
Oh, wow.
And we rescued some dogs as well. So
So you
And
doing great work.
but I remember seeing City Park and the museum were surrounded by water.
It must have been awful.
Yeah, because
I mean, not that anyone is. Yeah, everyone has the vivid memories, but I really don't think that one has been shown that much. Actually showing pictures of a museum surrounded by water. So
Right.
that's an unusual one. We've all seen the typical street water in many locations, but I really don't remember seeing it. And of course, the aftermath of what the park has been just totally devastated,
Right.
all of its magnificent trees and all. So you did, again, when are we talking? Was this done post-Katrina?
This was done post-Katrina, because I remember when I first came to New Orleans, I always liked going to see the duck pond and watching the cranes, and plus visiting a museum, because my art instructors always told me, keep looking at art, keep getting inspiration. So I love the willow trees and the flowers that are coming back around that little lagoon.
Right. There's just beautiful shades. The sky is just magnificent. I think the white, I'm hoping everyone agrees, the white shows, for the camera, it shows it up a lot nicer.
Yeah.
The first one, it blended in so well and dark, and it really made it look darker than it is. This really brings it out with the white. Now, I noticed the back is sealed with some type of cloth and also make it very, very nice. What do you do there to protect it further or to keep it stable?
I do that mostly to make sure that your wall color doesn't doesn't interfere with the image that's painted on the screen.
Very good.
So depending
Right.
on what color fabric I have on the back,
Got it.
gives you a different mood or sort of atmospheric look to them.
Wow, I hadn't even thought of that. So, yeah, so if you left it open, then whatever color you put it on, it would be... what would happen if you put it on a mirror? I don't want to confuse the matter. Okay, let's go on, because these are great. Moving to a little larger scale. What do we have there?
This one is of Lake Pontchartrain, which I love the sunsets.
Yeah, look at that. That is a beauty.
So I usually, going back and forth between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, I see this a lot.
I bet.
So
yeah, you really put the emphasis on the sky. I guess that would be more afternoon, huh?
Well, this is more towards evening, just before the
sunset. I meant right near sunset.
So sometimes when there's a car accident, I'm out taking pictures on the bridge.
You notice, you can see it's really showing up well. This one is really so vivid, just a beautiful. Look at those cumulus. I guess those are cumulus. I probably get the wrong name from the meteorologist. I call those cumulus clouds, or maybe stratospheric ones, whatever, stratus ones. They go all the way up. They're going way up into the high heavens, and just a magnificent waterscape reflecting the trees,
the lake, and some of the marshes.
Some of the marsh areas. Now, do you title any of your works, or no? You just
I do title them on the back.
On the back.
And I sometimes like to do a series of paintings as well. So, like, I have my Live Oak series, and then I have City Park series, or Bayou Blue series.
Okay. So this one would be called the I-10 series? Just teasing. Anyway, this is a very large. What would you estimate the size on this?
This one, again, is probably 24 by 22.
Now, this wouldn't be, that couldn't be a transom, huh? That's got to be more like
this is an old porch screen.
Porch screen.
But I think originally it may have went vertically.
Okay. That's what I was saying. Maybe it stood up vertically instead of horizontally. Right. But still, it's just a beautiful painting. And you say so far these have all been acrylic.
Acrylic, and I've had some in oil as well.
Okay, but I mean, as we paint in oil, as we display in oil, let's talk about it, and we'll see if we can see, I doubt it, any difference. Maybe we will here in the studio, but I'm not sure if it'll show up that well on the screen. Okay, let's go back into another long vertical one. This one with a natural frame. I like this very, very much. And what do we have here? This is a beautiful panorama.
Yes, that one stays outside my patio.
Oh, so this is
we have a cover.
Yours.
Yeah.
And what do we call this one? Where is this?
This is a very familiar scene that you would have seen maybe 100 years ago on Plaquemine Bayou. Everyone talks about the camps that they had, and now some of them have become homes. But this one, I wanted to kind of capture someone that's staying in the camp overnight, and in the back of the camp, you see the little outhouse right beside it.
Yeah.
So that lets you know back then, no indoor plumbing. And this is something that you'd probably see when you were in your P row. going down the bayou, or your flatboat.
I tell you, going to being an auction addict, especially in art, Louisiana scenes, and other places too, but certainly the swamp areas and stuff like this are some of the most sought after, certainly by its citizens, but even by many of the folks outside. So I think you've really done a lot of justice. Like this area I wasn't familiar at all, even though it could be any march, but that's great for you to be able to identify particulars for us, because, I mean, unless people had been to that particular march, just a different look than some of the other ones that we've seen. You know? It's
something that people need to know, that how the Louisiana landscape is changing, not just because of hurricanes, but development as well. People are now taking, especially in West Baton Rouge, developers coming in and changing old sugarcane fields into gated communities. Yeah. So that landscape is changing, and we're losing a bit of Americana and some of that nostalgia of having wide open spaces.
And I'm shocked post-Katrina how Baton Rouge has. I mean, it seems so close. It's almost like a neighboring community now,
right? And
because these gated communities start so close to New Orleans there, really.
Right. And what's interesting, I get people that sometimes they'll stand in front of this and they'll cry up in front of it.
Really?
So I had to kind of take it out, because once you hear these people's stories about how they lost their camps or their homes that were in their families for over 100 years.
Yeah, it gets very emotional.
It gets very emotional, and it was just.
Okay, well, we don't want to bring that kind of sentiment, although it is a beautiful piece. So let's take now, folks. The director's going to, if he hadn't already, put up the phone numbers for you all to call. We're talking to Thomas Berger, who is kind of one of a kind. I've never seen this before. He does screenscapes with either oil or acrylic on our natural screens, mainly recycled screens from the homes, camps, etc. of Louisiana. And you're going to see it's not just we're showing you a lot of natural landscapes and waterscapes, but you're going to see to the extent of, and that's what I've been trying to tell you, that these are just as detailed as a art and oil or acrylic that you would see on canvas, on wood, or on slate. It's amazing how he's able to do this on screen. So like I said, it really don't appreciate it, because you're just appreciating the art, but until you actually see it up close, one-on-one, is when you can understand it. So if you wish to call and speak to Thomas about any of these or about his technique, please do during the show, and we're going to go back over again where he's exhibiting, and of course the markets where he shows as well, so you can actually come and meet him in the flesh and see his work as well. Let's go on again before this is moving away, maintaining some landscape in the background, but bringing it more to me. I just find this a real romantic, kind of almost an Italianate master painting done. It's just beautifully. Talk us about these doves. I guess they're doves. I'm hoping they're doves. And it's really, really pretty one.
I tried to also find inspiration in old master still lifes, especially French still lifes.
There you go. So I knew it was either Italian or French, so I'm pretty good there.
Yeah, you got a good eye. So I'm trying to show people here that I can pretty much paint anything on the screen. So I have a love for birds and nature and
as the camera gets closer, we're going to see the level of detail. Like I said before, you're always just trees, but now you can see the realism and just the fine line of birds, the feathers, the eyes, the beaks. Same thing when we pan over to the flowers. But go ahead, didn't mean to interrupt you. Tell us what else.
So I've done some art restoration for different antique shops in the quarter, so I see a lot of these. And I thought, well, why not try to paint one on the screen and see what happens? And this scene, I've had several people want me to paint this same image, but I usually try to change something about it.
Well, sure.
Yeah,
you don't have to have the same.
Right.
But I mean, this would be great. Someone with a Tuscany, the latest rage and decor. Right. Just a beautiful, beautiful piece. Or someone with an old line French traditional kind of thing. But it's just, regardless of your lifestyle or your furniture style, this is just a beautiful, beautiful piece. Again, it's a very large one. What size do you think this is again?
It's probably the same size, 22 by 24.
And this, again, is still acrylics?
This is still acrylics, yes.
Okay. very muted, but at the same time, when you get close to it, as you see on the thing, the colors didn't resonate. So, but you're going to see, and that's the first couple of ones I saw when I first met Thomas, were the same muted stuff. And I said, well, it's really nice, but can you do anything vibrant? And I think you're going to see that coming up with the next, you're going to hold them together. All right, let's take a look at this next duo that Thomas has. And why don't you tell us about these? Are small. Now, these are not framed. These are gallery wrapped, which people don't know what gallery wrapped is. That means, if I'm seeing correct, that means you painted it all the way around?
This is still painted on the screen, but it's stretched over a painted canvas.
Okay, so the screen is on canvas.
I toned the canvases,
okay,
but the image is painted on the screen. So I've had some clients that say, well, I don't have any screen windows or doors. So I said, well, do you have something left from your home that you can use as a frame? So some people have been using weatherboards or beams to create a frame. So this gives them the option of having a screenscape, but sort of stretched differently. These 3 trees are from the Wilbert compound in Plaquemine.
Oh, okay. And so wait, that's not here, huh?
Right. And Johnny Wilbert talked about these 3 trees. This one right here being Charity.
Okay.
And the other one that's down
on the left
is the Tree of Hope. And next to that one is the Tree of Faith.
So the one that's actually reclining is Hope?
That one is Hope.
And Faith is a standard one on the left?
Is the next one.
Wow, Faith, Hope, and Charity. And these are all in the same compound, you say?
These are all the same compound. Mr. Johnny Wilbert is 82 years old. Mind is still sharp as a tack. And he's the one that can date any tree in Plaquemine. And he was telling me that most of the trees in Plaquemine came from Charity. And he always said, if you can follow those 3 words of inspiration, charity, hope, and faith, that you can get through anything in life and be a success at anything in life. Right. So I really pay attention to those 3 words in my work as well.
Okay, now let's talk about the size. Since they're together, it's hard for maybe people to decide. But what do you think? These are smaller pieces, obviously.
This is probably, 8 by 20,
20, and the others almost 8 by 11 or 10
by 11.
Yeah. And it's weird because if you see them, I don't know if the color is reflecting on the screen or not. One of them is a magnificent blue. The horizontal one has a lot of blues and just beautiful from that sky. Whereas the others, I think the greens or something resonate more the woody tones, even though he says they're all, and I'm not saying they're all together in the same place. They're in the same location, but not necessarily back to back like this. But just 2 different perspectives are just a beautiful thing. And as I mentioned, the art gallery, once again, I'm not under. So you, as you say, you take a canvas and you prepare the canvas, but you go ahead and you paint the screen separately before it's applied to the canvas. Correct. Is that right?
So then once the image is painted, then I stretch the screen over the toned canvas.
I see.
So it's still the old copper screen that I'm using, and it's still acrylics.
Yeah. So most of the screens in those days were made from copper, is that what you're saying?
They were either copper or brass. As you got into the 50s with aluminum being used, somewhere aluminum screening.
Yeah, well, aluminums were the new. But there was no, I thought there was some with iron, but there's no iron. It's just copper and brass.
There might be iron, but I haven't encountered any yet.
Okay. Well, we got one more in this series, and again, we're talking to Thomas Berger. Berger, I'll get it. From New Orleans and also from Plaquemine, who is a screenscape artist. He does his work on predominantly recycled, but we saw where some folks didn't have a transom or anything to give him or for him to use, so he was able to take it and recreate it, still doing his work, his art on the screen, but then transferring it to a canvas, which makes it a lot more palatable, I guess, for most folks. But the au naturel look of this is really making it distinctive. Now, this one is really something you'll recognize. This is definitely like either a cabinet door or an old-time screen that opened up and has its knob. And why don't we talk about this particular one?
This one was to an old pie safe. And I had a client, she said, well, I love Newcomb pottery.
Okay.
And I could see this
yes.
image on one of your screens, and she gave me a piece of pottery to copy. And I painted what was on the Newcomb pottery onto the screen.
Just beautiful. And I guess I'm hoping most people know, because the value of Newcomb pottery today in the auction houses, nothing less than, I would say, $10,000. Most of them average around $40,000. And this was ordinary pottery done by the students during their training, but of course way back, most of them date back to the 30s or 20s. Beautifully pieces, not that there's anything wrong with them, but it's not like these were really training pieces for the students. And nowadays they've come into such important vogue, if you watch Antiques Roadshow or anyone's been to any auctions to know. So this has very similar look to that on one of the tall vases. To take just as beautiful trees, I guess that's moss hanging down?
Yeah, they're Spanish moss, which you find in Louisiana and Savannah.
And what size would you say this is about?
That one's probably 30 by 12 or 8.
Yeah, maybe even less than 12 in narrow door, but yeah, approximately 30, almost 3 feet, 2.5 feet tall. So this is great for a wall that would be thinner or not as big as some of the others. Really, really nice. Well, we're talking to Thomas Berger. There we go, I got it. And doing about his screenscapes. Let's review a little bit about his background, as he told us, and nice enough to tell us that his grandfather was a German painter who, after the war, spent a lot of time doing that, and having the luxury of having his grandson by his knees, I guess, or sitting side by side. And what better way to learn than from a real artist? Most of us today, if you take an art class, it's usually in group sessions with about 20 other people, and everyone is at different levels. So to be able to sit by someone, first of all, that you love, and have he or she be so talented that you can pick up that just the basics, whether it's asking questions or just through imitating, is great. We said he does have his own website. Let's go over that again. It's www.tlbartrestoration, all one word.com, because he does do restoration as well as these wonderful creations. And he is presently exhibiting, I missed the name of Miss Mann's Gallery. Does she have a name of the gallery?
Miss Mann's Gallery is 815 Royal Street.
And is there a name on it? Or is
Great Artists Collective.
The Great Artist Collective. He's on probably for a while, and you can see it either during the weekdays or I'm sure on Saturdays. Now, is that also indicated on your website?
Yes, it is.
So even the phone number and all, so that way, so you can go to the website, get the phone number of the gallery. So if you should care to go see it in person at the gallery, and you said you had 5 pieces there, right?
Yes.
But then again, perhaps next month, if they're having it on the third Saturday of the month, you can go to the Arts Market of New Orleans, formerly known as Mid-City Market, held at Palmer Park on the third Saturday of each month. And he will be there along with 50 other vendors offering his wares. In fact, that's where I met Thomas X number of months ago and asked him to be on the show, because not only is it a unique idea, it's not just a fad of recycling, it's the quality of the work. I was super impressed with his abilities and his talent, and to be able to do it on this medium is really, really challenging until you really see it in person and understand the difficulty. I guess it's hard to carry that over here on the screen. All right, now, we've predominantly stayed with some of the smaller pieces. Again, if you want to call in, please, we welcome the calls. We'd love to hear from you. Thomas and I would. Anything about this show, his work of arts, or anything else about the shows that we have that we can answer for you. So please give us a call. Meanwhile, we're ready to start some of the bigger pieces. These are ones we have in the front section of the studio, so we're still going to go one by one. And let's see. We have a caller. So before we start, let's entertain this. So we see if we can answer a question. Welcome to Artist Review. Who's calling and from where?
Hi, my name's Terry from New Orleans. I just wanted to know, could you put the website up again?
Great. I don't know if they have it. They don't have it printed for you, Terry, but it's www.tlbartrestoration, TLB for Thomas L. Berger, ART Restoration, RESTORATION. All of that one word.com.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope, that's going to do it.
Thanks for watching. Okay, let's start with the big pieces, and why don't we go over the first one? What do we have here?
This one is
This is a double one, huh? Double. This is looking more like a screen, a window screen.
Yes. Well, this window screen came out of 1815 antebellum home.
Oh, wow.
So that's why you have the center support there. And this one was over the doorways.
Makes sense.
And this one...
And what is our topics here? Again,
this one is my version of those three trees, faith, hope, and charity.
the same trees from the Gilbert compound?
From the Wilbert.
Wilbert, I'm sorry.
And it's showing them when they were, when hope was still up. Mr. Wilbert was telling me how in 1971 his family home had burned down to the ground.
Wow.
And the charity tree had caught on fire. So they threw the hoses into the bayou and put the fire out on the tree. And they could not save the home. But they were able to find another home and move that home to the compound and sort of resurrect the family.
So they
home.
kept their property. Basically.
Yes, they did.
But unfortunately, the tree didn't survive.
The tree did survive. They did put it out, and you can still see the char marks on the trunk.
So it's still growing, even though it's on the horizontal position.
No, the horizontal is the tree
that
of
was
hope.
Oh, okay.
So it's charity.
So charity burned, but did not burn enough to cause destruction.
Right.
But what caused, do you know, Hope's demise or Hope's unusual position?
I think it was a storm that brought hope down.
But it's not growing anymore. It's just...
No, it's just the trunk of the tree, which has Virginia creeper growing on the trunk of it. So Mr. Wilbert was telling me that in the fall, you see this wonderful vine of red growing on the trunk.
It gives it some color.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. And again, let's tell the people approximately, again, these are two, but set into one. About what size would you think this is? This is pretty big.
This is probably 36 by 20.
36 by 20, maybe? Yeah, okay. 3 feet, at least 3 feet, if not longer. So this would really command some space. What I wanted to ask you also before we move on to the next one is, what would happen if you, of course, maybe you answered earlier about having these backings, but what would happen if you actually hung these in either a window or in the sunlight, on a porch or something like that? Would the sunlight damage the painting?
The sunlight would fade.
Yeah, so we really didn't want to do that.
So I've had people request some without backing, but the only way you can see that screen is if it's dark outside, or if you have it facing outside, the room needs to be dark to see the painted image.
Right. But again, the sun is going to take its toll.
The sun will fade it, just like if you were to have a chalk pastel or oil painting in direct sunlight. Over time, that paint does fade.
But now, how about with the backing? Would that form any kind of blockage, or it still would deteriorate?
It would still cause. That's why I ask people to, if they're going to display them outside, to put them in a covered patio area. But I'm finding that some of these are ending up above people's sideboards or in their foyers, and it's just amazing to see how something that looks so ugly can become a work of art in someone's home.
It's beauty is in the eye of the beholder, beauty in the beholder. Now, one other question: what about if you had a light behind it? What would happen now? If you put some kind of indirect lighting or direct
I imagine
lighting.
it would sort of become a distraction.
Okay. So it would just focus on the light. It wouldn't illuminate the whole screen?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking that might really be attractive. You could illuminate the whole screen, not just, a certain aspect.
That's where I'd say I'd contact your art glass, your stained glass person.
I got it. Okay, and did we say, well, again, that's the faith, hope, and charity tree from the Wilbert, just done on a much larger scale, and then, of course, your interpretation. All right, let's move to the next one, and let's take a look and see what we got.
This one I have, it's my own tree that's in front of my home. It's 140 years old. I did one side of the front and then the back side of the tree and then added a canal. So you're looking at my tree pre-Gustav.
Oh, this is before Gustav. Yeah,
Yes.
because I'd say you almost had some damage with Gustav.
I
huh?
did. I lost part of the top of the tree.
Look how
it
beautiful it
went
is.
from one corner of the yard to the other corner of the yard. And all of the leaves were stripped off of the tree, but it is coming back, and it's wanting, I guess, to...
Now, have you measured your trees for age?
Yes, I did. I figured out that it's 140 years old. It was there before the home was built. I have an 1890 antebellum style home.
So then the tree was there, obviously, for almost 50 years, if not more, before.
Correct.
Wow, great. Okay, and again, that's a long vertical one. What would you say the length on that one was? 3 feet again?
About 3 feet again,
Okay.
I'd say.
Let's continue. I think we've got a couple more in that same size range, I believe. Is that right? Oh, no. Where are we going with it, Mr. Director? Okay, here we go back to another double screen like Faith, Hope, and Charity. What do we have in this?
This one is New Roads, Louisiana.
New
A lot
Roads.
of people have their summer homes, and now some have
Now, is that
permanent
across the
homes.
river, too?
It's closer towards, I think, Gonzales, New Orleans.
Okay, all right.
So
I've been there once, but the way I got there, I didn't know where I was. So I
this
just totally
one,
misunderstood how I wound up. Anyway.
this was done in the fall.
Okay.
Because the light changes,
Oh,
and
yes.
you get more blues and
Yeah,
gold
definitely a lot of
colors,
blue, huh?
pinks. And so I have some of the bald cypress trees, and there's some of the shoreline that you'd see if you were in a flatboat or a pirogue.
Just beautifully done.
Thank you.
And again, this is just two different. Is it from the same bayou, you think? Or is it a bayou or something that it runs along?
Yeah, I've forgotten the name of it, but
Okay.
I know in that
I remember
town-
riding along through it, and there was this bayou next to it they kept talking about. That ran along most of where I was now in New Roads.
yeah.
So I don't know.
It's almost like a lake because you
Yes,
see a lot
right.
of
It's
people.
very large, very large. But look how pretty the ones on one where we just got a close up of that branches. Again, from the distance, it's hard to tell, and it's almost impossible to tell in any of these that we're talking about the fine mesh of a screen that was on a home. I mean, these.
Yeah, the screens were from Dr. Grace's estate.
Okay.
So they had a
Look
barn
at that.
full of these.
Let's stop for that one a second. I think that is the blues and the golds. They are just magnificent. And the trees, as he said, the fall. So obviously, it lost a lot of its foliage, but still has the hanging moss, and just really just a lovely, lovely setting. Anything else you want to say on that? I'm sorry.
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, let's move along to another one. Again, with Thomas Berger. I get it. His screenscapes. He was kind enough to bring a bunch to the studio today. And we'll tell you more a little later. Call in if you have any more questions about the website or anything. Let's see what else we got. I know we got some more big ones coming up. What we got coming up? Another double?
Yeah, this is at dusk, and Lake Pontchartrain in the marshy areas.
Wow. Okay.
These are the wild irises, water irises.
Yes.
Now, when I had seen some, they were yellow, and I decided to paint mine purple.
Purple.
And then put a white one that you can see sort of towards that little
I don't know
middle.
where you see these, because I've always heard about it. I've seen them in people's houses, transplants, but I've never seen them, like, of course, I don't go that much in the swamps, I guess, but I mean, like, whenever we drive over any place that has it, we always scar it. I've never seen the irises blooming, so that is just beautiful.
Thank you.
That's a great, great native Louisiana scape, I think, one that really represents not only our flower there, but also our look for yourself or for gifts, or just to be just truly a unique gift for any someone who comes here, because they all know about our swamps, but really don't know what swamps are. So this would be just really a great, great look at it. Okay, let's move on to another one before we end. Now these are more. Let's see, which way are we going? Are we going with the one with the mirror? Where are we going? The ones on the top next? Let's see. Okay, now we're getting to these large, and this is
my Acadian Tremeau.
Okay.
I've restored some tremeaux, and usually
Now tell people what a tremeau is, because again,
a tremeau is a French mirror. At the bottom you have the mirror, and at the top you have a painted
You
image.
always have some type of painting, right?
Right.
Again,
Usually,
not necessarily on screen, but again, the tremeau is very, very popular in French. And again, we are showing the beautiful scene. What's the scene on top? It's just beautiful yellows and greens and blues.
This scene is the duck pond at City Park. I just edited out the little house that you would see next to the shore.
Mm-hmm.
And
now, did this originally have a mirror, or you inserted the mirror?
I inserted the mirror.
Okay, this was normally just a double
screen. I tore
screen.
out the screen, and then there's a wonderful glass company in Plaquemine that helped me with this.
So you see, folks, this is great. So this is something just be beautiful for those who know about tremeau mirrors. I mean, it's just really beautifully done in the representation, but done in Louisiana style. So this would be great. I mean, with all our emphasis on the country look and the return to our roots, and this would just be a beautiful, beautiful piece to hang in anyone's home. Okay, what else we got? Let's see what else we got. I know we got a couple more, and then we'll talk before we close up. I think we got. Before we move in, as I said, the detail is so much. We saw that on a few of the, of course, it's on all of them, but we saw on some of the wonderful doves and the flowers. But you're going to see our last two, which we're not gotten to yet. But our last ones today will actually be portraits. So this really can tell you the detail that this gentleman has and skills. But let's look at this, and this is another, not a mirror. Is it a mirror? No, this is a double screen.
It's a double screen.
And what's our subject here?
This one was probably a kitchen window screen.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah.
Again, I wanted to paint the irises in the foreground, and then in the background, the cypress trees and a willow. And it's one of the canals in Plaquemine.
Just beautiful. This is really like as if you were looking out the kitchen window to the rear, to the water and the swamp in the back. With it's perfectly done by putting the irises in the bottom screen, so it really does proportionally come out perfect. So it really looks like truly a real setting.
Thank you.
I think you just done an admirable job here. So again, for those who love floral lovers and kind of getting our native flower, really you're getting 2 for 1 in this particular scape, because you've got the severe background in the back, but the magnificent irises there blooming in the bottom part of the screen. Okay, let's take a look at a few more. Again, if you have any questions, give us a call. We'd love to talk to you. But we do have, let's see, I think 2 or 3 more left. What we got, Anthony?
This
okay,
one.
these are the ones. These are big ones, but the blues here are so vibrant. Let's talk about this one.
I love a New Orleans sky. I mean, it reminds me of Venice. And these birds that are flying around, you see them in the quarter in the evening, and they're called chimney swift birds.
Ah.
And their original habitat was hollowed out cypress.
Okay.
And they'd build their nests in the hollowed parts of the cypress.
Of the cypress.
But as the cypress was being harvested, they started moving into the quarter and started building their nests in the chimneys.
In the chimneys themselves, right? That's
right.
Okay.
And now they're sort of an endangered bird. You can still find them flying around in the quarter, kind of doing their little dance while catching insects in the air. And they're no bigger than your thumb, but it's just amazing how they can dart in and out of these old chimneys in the quarter. So I have them, and we also see them on our property because we have a pair that's nesting in our chimney.
Wow.
So
these, of course, are these trees here? We're looking at clouds in the back.
These are clouds.
Clouds,
so
okay.
This screenscape you would mount up above you, and you'd look up to see this.
Right, you'd want this at a higher level because it's just mainly skyscape with the birds. Beautiful. And what size is that? That looks really nice.
I'm trying to think what that one was. 24 by 36, something like that.
Beautiful view. Again, the vibrancy of the blue is just amazing, especially when you find out it's on these screens. So let's see if we have anything else. If not, we're going to go to the portraits, and we can talk about these. I think we're ready for the portraits now, Anthony, huh? Is that right?
Okay. I collect...
All right, now this is like as I was telling you, as we're going to really take our time on this one, but wait till you see the level of detail in these fine gentlemen of the past or the present. And let's hear what we have. I'm sure there's a story goes along with it.
I collect old ambrotypes, which are the early photography.
Okay.
And the images were on glass.
Right.
So this one, it was titled New Orleans Brothers, and I own that image. And I decided to paint it onto the screen because it's showing the sort of the affection between two men. They're two brothers.
Right.
And anytime that you can find an ambrotype that shows this or someone's trade, it's highly collectible.
Oh, really?
So I collect these where men are paired together, or...
And what period? I'm sure it was 18-somethings.
This was probably around 1870, 1880.
Okay.
I have some earlier ones that are 1850.
And let's back up a little bit, take a look at the frame. I'll get close on the frame because this is beautifully done as well. Did you do the frame?
Yes, I did the sort of leaf motif.
Yeah, see if we get a close up of that because that work is. I was wondering whether you did it. And the work was so detailed. I said I didn't know if we could find something. I knew it wasn't store-bought,
right.
But
and in the corner there, you see 3 acorns, which again represents faith, hope, and charity. And also, the acorn is a symbol of family heritage.
Heritage, right? Now, these just painted, or they look like bas-relief? They look like they have some.
They are painted. So,
but you've got built it up so it almost comes off of the wood itself. It gives it
most of that is the thick layers of paint that were already on the screen. So
I know there's some palmettos in the back of the painting.
Yes,
is that right?
That was in the original image.
In the original too?
Yes.
Oh, I thought maybe you had really added the Louisiana touch there by putting the palmetto screen. Really great.
What's interesting about this early photography is that the photographer had 10 minutes in which to prep the glass plate, expose the plate, and then develop the plate. So he had to have
how much time? 10
minutes. So you had to be somewhat of a master at this.
Wow.
So that you wouldn't get fingerprints on the negative and have a really crisp, clear image.
Wow. And these were on glass, you say, is that right?
They were on glass.
So but I mean, do they come out like in reverse, or are they just as you see it on the glass?
Well, like I have one of my ancestors that's has his Civil War uniform, and the U.S. on his belt buckle is backwards.
Right.
So you get the opposite image.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like like painting in reverse on the glass, because I know a lot of it. So it is in reverse.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like you need a mirror.
And then the backs of these glass negatives were coated with either a brown or a black varnish, so you could see that image come alive.
Ah, okay. Wow. I heard in relation to daguerreotypes.
Daguerreotypes are metal. They're on metal.
Right. But I mean, time
metal.
period, like, did the daguerreotypes come first, or did these
They were
ambrotypes?
and then daguerreotypes.
Okay. Well, we're going way off the beaten path for you folks. But you can see how well versed our painter is today to know the history. And we've got one more, I think, again, another magnificent portrait, antique portrait. Let's take a look at that, and then we'll talk to Thomas again in detail before we close up. All right, Anthony, let's see what we got here.
This one is a copy portrait of a Anglo-American father with his mulatto son. And the son, Jules Leon, brought the daguerreotype to New Orleans.
No. Now, which one's the son? Obviously the one on the left, huh?
Yes.
The younger looking one, I guess. Okay.
So his father recognized his talents, and he sent him to study art in Europe. And then he came back to work in New Orleans as a lithographer, a portrait artist, and a photographer. So there's few of his images left. The original image of this is in chalk pastel. And I recently had a client contact me that his mother had acquired his self-portrait in the French Quarter years ago. So that I know of is the only surviving self-portrait of Jules Leon.
Wow.
So, and this one I know, like I said, is in chalk pastel. So to find one in oil is very rare. It's almost a New Orleans treasure. And
is this oil you've done here?
This right here is done in acrylics.
Acrylic still. Okay.
So,
and what is the size? Let's pull back again, because again, this is a large one. It's predominantly square, but it's got a beautiful frame. And again, is this a frame you did?
this is a screen.
Oh, just a screen.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just a square screen.
Okay.
There would have been two sections, a top section screen and a bottom. They would pop out as four porch screens.
So you were able to make it into one for the portraits.
Correct.
Really beautiful. Really
Thank you.
beautiful. So we'll close with that. Again, what we've been talking about are called screenscapes. I don't know if you'll encounter them anywhere else. Do you think you're unique with this concept? Do you think you pioneered it? I hate to put you on the spot there. Is it something you know that is done elsewhere?
Well, I hope to be remembered as the artist that created meaningful things for people.
Well, I think that's easily said, but I'm just saying on screen itself.
On screen, I've known others sewn tar paper onto screen and painted on tar paper.
Okay.
But this is the first time that I've seen someone paint on the screen and make it to where you can change it just by the color fabric on the back.
Okay. Well, we want to thank, we're out of time, folks. We want to thank Thomas Berger, of Plaquemines in New Orleans for bringing the screenscapes here to us today. As we said, let's go real quickly before we close. You can find him on the third Saturday of the month, not this weekend, though, at the Arts Market of New Orleans on Palmer Park, for those that are aware. That's on Claiborne and Carrollton, where they intersect. That beautiful big square park. There'll be about 50 plus other vendors there, many of all different types, from food to other artists. So certainly check it out if you haven't, and there's no reason why not to go back, because it is the largest. So on the third Saturday of the month, you can see he and his wares there. Presently, you can see him at Sandra Mann's gallery called something about the Collective. I don't know, but it's 815 Royal
Street.
And you can go during the weekdays, probably 10 to 5, and also on Saturday. Lastly, you go to his website, www.tlbartrestoration.com. There you can see a few more samples of this work. You can understand what he does for other art restorations, and also find out about his gallery there with regard to details more on how to communicate or how to find the gallery, so you can go from there. We want to tell you we always enjoy being here. We'll look for us again at the end of July, last Wednesday. We've got another artist lined up all the way through the end of the year, and hopefully we'll have our new beginning for you. Until then, we'll see you at the art markets or at the galleries. Take care.